Hello, I'm Esther Gidu-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. A temporary ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas begins on Thursday. The deal calls for the release of 50 hostages held by Hamas in exchange for 150 Palestinians held in Israeli jails. A surge in the number of migrants making the treacherous journey from West Africa to Spain's Canary Islands puts them at great risk and strains local authorities. And in our technology report, Ghana's Wikipedia team lead talks about empowering individuals to contribute to Wikipedia in their native languages. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast in the Middle East, where Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 4-day ceasefire to allow the militant group to release 50 hostages in exchange for 150 Palestinians imprisoned in Israel and the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. The negotiations to the hostage deal has been confirmed by both parties, along with the White House and Qatar, which helped broker the deal that will bring a temporary halt to the devastating war that is now in its 7th week. Hamas seized around 240 hostages, including several Americans, during the terror group's October 7th attack on Israel. The Middle East has been a tinderbox since the Hamas attack on Israel killed at least 1,200 people while taking the hostages. Israel responded with retaliatory strikes and a ground offensive that has caused thousands of deaths. Egyptian state media says the truce will begin Thursday morning. More than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed, according to the Hamas-run Palestinian health authorities. A senior U.S. official says the hostages released by Hamas are expected to include several Americans. Gunfire exchanges between Hezbollah and Israel at the border with Lebanon, as well as attacks across the border with Syria, have continued since the beginning of Israel's war against Hamas. Israel Defense Forces Golan Infantry Brigade is ready at the border for the possibility of a further escalation. VOA's Natasha Mosgovaya recently visited Israel's northern border.
The road to the Israeli military outpost near Syria winds through minefields fenced with barbed wire, left from previous wars over the Golan Heights. Israel seized the area from Syria during the 1967 Six-Day War. As Israeli teams were clearing minefields to make way for more wind turbine farms, Hamas attacked Israel in the south on October 7. There is no formal war between Israel and Lebanon, nor between Israel and Syria. But in the past few weeks, the northern border of Israel has seen pretty significant exchanges of fire. Most of the clashes are happening across the Israel-Lebanon border, led by the Shiite Islamist group Hezbollah, with Israel Defense Forces in response striking Hezbollah projectile launch sites, observation posts, and other military infrastructure in Lebanon. So far, Israel says at least 76 Hezbollah militants and 7 Israeli soldiers have been killed. Hezbollah and the Shiite militant group in Syria did not join Hamas' full-scale military offensive against Israel, but the tensions are high, and the Israeli Golani Brigade stands ready on the north border. At this military outpost near the border with Syria, we are limited in what we can film. Nothing that can disclose the location, equipment used, or personnel numbers. Soldiers' last names, like Yair's, are also off-limits.
Of course, things are a little bit more tense since there is a war going on, so our readiness is a little bit higher. But we're here for as long as it takes, and we're here for a long time.
In response to the Hamas attack, the Israeli government mobilized 360,000 reservists. Yair says he got his first reserve call on the day Hamas attacked Israel. Ariel, another reservist, says this war is different from the previous rounds of violence between Israel and its neighbors because of the cruelty of Hamas' attack against civilians.
Feels much more personal, much more serious, because everybody in the state of Israel knows somebody that was there, or somebody that got killed or got injured on the terrible attack on the 7th of October. So the second I got the call, I couldn't just sit at home and do nothing.
Ariel says they've been serving for over a month, but they're committed and have strong support back home.
We didn't want this war, okay? This war has been forced on us, okay? We didn't want this to happen, but this is the only place that we have, and this is the only Jewish country that we have, and we will fight on this Jewish country, and we will do whatever we need to do.
As we drive into Kiryat Shmona, closer to the Lebanon border, the app people use when they're too far away to hear the sirens warns of another rocket attack. These days, the city of Kiryat Shmona, in quieter days home to 22,000 people, is a ghost town. It was evacuated along with residents of 27 other Israeli towns and villages within several kilometers of the northern border. The city recently lost a favorite lunch spot on a main street, heavily damaged following a direct hit by a Hezbollah rocket. Despite the constant whirring of drones in the air, the Israeli military calls the weapons exchanges with Hezbollah below the threshold of war, warning, however, that in case of escalation of attacks, it will deepen its response. Natasha Mozgovaya, VOA News, northern border of Israel.
The Hamas attack October 7th and the subsequent Israeli military retaliation has deepened the division between Jews and Muslims within the Israeli society. But some families remain steadfast in their belief that Arabs and Jews can coexist. Learning how to live together starts in school. Pilar Sebriani has the story narrated by Veronica Villafane.
Guy Elhanan is an Israeli who has made the deliberate choice of enrolling his children in a unique school environment where Jewish and Muslim students attend classes together.
There are many benefits. If I have to choose one, is that they lack this very essential component of the Israeli Jewish identity, which is fear of the other.
Guy says he is fighting against an Israeli society entangled in conflict and moving towards a future marked by division, estrangement, and confrontation.
Generations on generations of very fruitful, beyond fruitful. I mean, the Jewish and the Arabic culture, Muslim culture group together. They can't exist without each other.
That's why he wanted his children to attend school alongside other Muslim students, Israeli Arabs, descendants of Palestinians who integrated into the State of Israel after it became independent in 1948. Arabs make up about 21% of the country's population, and among that minority population, his son's best friends.
I would say it either Adam or Liam. Both very sweet, wonderful kids, both very good in football. Both of them have a Jewish mother and a Palestinian father.
Haifa is a unique city in Israel. It's among the rare places where mixed couples live, where both Jewish and Muslim communities come together, fostering an atmosphere of mutual tolerance. This environment encourages dialogue on pressing issues, including the recent war in Gaza. This was evident during a recent weekend at Haifa's Mahmoud Mosque, where Jews and Muslims converged to share an evening, sending a message of peace and coexistence to the rest of the country. Muhammad Sharif Odeh is president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Haifa.
I invite all our neighbors, they are afraid from us. I don't know why they are afraid, to tell them we are living here before Israel and after Israel in a peaceful way, and we live together in the neighborhood in the coexistence.
For the moment, the Gaza war has created divisions that threaten to spread beyond Gaza. But here, in this place, where Israelis and Muslims share space, there are those who still believe that conflict resolution and a lasting peace is achievable. For Pilar Sebrian in Haifa, Israel, Veronica Villafane, VOA News.
For over 3 decades, Israeli media personality Shlomi Eldar has been covering Hamas and Gaza. In his books and award-winning documentaries, he tried to tell the stories of the Palestinians beyond the wall. Natasha Mozgovaya spoke with him in Israel.
I followed Hamas for over 13 years. I've never imagined to myself that Hamas became monsters. I had interviewed Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the Hamas movement, many times. I met many of the Hamas leaders over the years. I've never imagined that they could do something that we can comparing to the Nazis, butchering, burning bodies, children, rapes, kidnapped children.
Shlomi Eldar, an Israeli author and documentary filmmaker who started covering Gaza in 1991, says Hamas was elected in 2006 in part in response to the perceived corruption of the Palestinian Authority and because of Hamas' welfare work with the people in the Gaza Strip. He says Hamas has since neglected its responsibilities to the people, instead diverting resources from civilians and opting for violence.
They took them back 20 or 25 years back and even more. And after this war, I don't know what will be in Gaza after this war, but I heard voices in Gaza now talking thrilling. What you've made for us, what you've done to us. And the first time that I think that I recognize the kind of demonstration against the Hamas movement.
He thinks the exceptional cruelty of the October 7 attack came about through a combination of factors. One of them is Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader in Gaza.
He was released in 2011, the prisoner exchange of Gilad Shalit, and Israel released him to Gaza. He's a cool man. I've heard many stories now because no one knows about him. He was arrested in 1989 because he butchered Palestinians. He suspected them they are collaborating with Israel, and he just tortured them and killed them.
The second factor, he says, is an education in violence.
The new generation, the young people, they were born or they were children when Hamas took power in Gaza Strip after the military coup. Maybe they were children 5, 6, 10 years old, and they grew up with excitement all the time. They even been taught that the Israelis are not human beings.
Israel declared the end of Hamas as the main goal of its military campaign in Gaza.
We can defeat Hamas, but we can't eliminate them. I think that Hamas, it's an ideological movement. An ideological movement you can destroy.
Eldar says he also knows Palestinians in Gaza who mourn the loss of the possibility of a Palestinian state and a peaceful coexistence with Israel.
I have a friend in Gaza Strip that I'm calling him every day. He's now in Rafah, hiding from the war. And he told me I left my house in Jabalia refugee camp and I was crying. I didn't cry because I left my house, but because my dream is broken. We had a dream. We had a dream to build a state, to have a relationship with the Israelis. Now Hamas has killed everything.
He says the recovery of Gaza may take decades, and he is not sure if the border with Israel will ever reopen. Natasha Mosgovaya, VOA News, Israel.
Now to West Africa. At least 3 people are dead and several others were injured in Liberia after a vehicle rammed into supporters of President-elect Joseph Boakai after election officials declared him the winner of a runoff vote. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
Presidential ticket of
Liberia's National Elections Commission announced earlier this week that Joseph Boakai had won the hotly contested presidential election runoff with 50.6% of the balloting, while incumbent George Weah took 49.3% of the vote. Despite the West African country's rich mineral reserves, including diamonds, gold, and iron ore, the new president-elect says his administration will closely examine mining concessions to ensure they benefit the country. Incumbent President George Weah conceded shortly after the Election Commission announced that Boakai was the winner. Weah, a former international soccer or football star, has earned praise in West Africa for his decision to concede defeat rather than challenge the outcome in court. Boakai campaigned on a promise to rescue Liberia, which is still recovering from the legacy of 2 civil wars, the Ebola and COVID pandemic, along with rampant poverty, unemployment, food insecurity, and poor electricity supply. Liberia's economy grew by 4.8% in 2022, driven by gold production and a relatively good rice harvest. However, according to the World Bank, more than 80% of the population still faces moderate or severe food insecurity. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
A surge in the number of migrants making the treacherous journey from West Africa to Spain's Canary Islands is straining local authorities. Human rights groups say many child migrants are being wrongly classified as adults by Spanish police, putting them at increased risk. Henry Ridgwell reports.
Musa Camara is 15 years old. He was orphaned following a coup in his home country of Guinea. He chose to escape, spending 11 days at sea in a wooden boat on the treacherous journey from Senegal to the Spanish island of Tenerife, along with 240 other migrants. For half that time, he had no food or water. 20 people died in the crossing. When he arrived on October 27th, Spanish authorities classified Camara and his friend as adults rather than children.
At the processing center, we said we were 15 years old, but they didn't write that. They took us as if we were adults, but we are children. We're children. They sent us here. They brought our papers. They betrayed us.
Police sent the two boys to an old military base in Tenerife's mountains, where around 2,000 adult migrants await transfers to mainland Spain. Amnesty International found that 12 of 29 migrants they interviewed on the islands were children who had been incorrectly classified as adults.
We were talking with one girl. She was 17 and she was detained for 3 days with men and women in a place without any oversight by the authorities. She was sleeping on the floor.
A bone test is required to prove a migrant's age, but these can take months. Child migrants are given extra support to find residency and education until they turn 18, but if they are classed as adults, they receive little government help. Amnesty says treating child migrants as adults is illegal under Spanish law, and it subjects them to injustices.
If they are treated as adults, they can be expelled to their countries of origin.
So far this year, more than 32,000 migrants have arrived on the Canary Islands from West Africa, the highest since 2006. Local authorities say the Spanish government isn't doing enough to help.
They have left us with 4,700 minors, with NGOs and resources saturated, with difficulties because the screening of who is a minor and who is not a minor is not being done. It is taking at least 3-4 months, and you have adults in centers for minors and minors in centers for adults. So we have this difficulty.
Amnesty International is calling on Spain and the European Union to make sure that child migrants are properly screened and to provide safer routes for refugees. The Spanish government said it was conducting dozens of assessments on cases of suspected minors being housed at adult migrant camps. Henry Ridgwell, VOA News, London.
Still to come in our technology report, Ghana's Wikipedia team lead talks about empowering individuals to contribute to Wikipedia in their native languages. Stay tuned.
This week on Straight Talk Africa, Liberian President George Weah has conceded the election to former Vice President Joseph Boakai. What does this mean for the future of Liberia, and what challenges lie ahead for the new president-elect? Join me, Heidi Adams, on my guests on the next Straight Talk Africa for an in-depth discussion on the road ahead for Liberia.
Away from the vibrant capital Nairobi, the northern region of Kenya is dealing with severe drought. This week, we are bringing you a special edition of Our Voices, part of Voice of America's recently released documentary, Hunger Voices. We're highlighting the effect of climate change on women and girls. We hear from a woman promoting a solution and encouraging everyone to take action. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, the Democratic Republic of Congo foreign minister and the head of the United Nations Stabilization Mission in Congo signed agreement Tuesday to end the presence of UN MONUSCO peacekeepers after more than 2 decades in the Central African nation. South Africa's Department of Corrections says former Olympic sprinter Oscar Pistorius will have a second chance at parole at a hearing on Friday after he was wrongly ruled ineligible for early release from prison in March. Pistorius has been in prison since late 2014 for the killing of his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp. And the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, has secured promises from the leaders of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo to de-escalate after alarm over a surge in violence, according to the White House. Haines traveled to the two countries earlier this week. Despite being a widely accessible and essential source of knowledge, Wikipedia needs more content in African languages. Some significant languages commonly spoken in Africa have fewer articles, unlike the top-ranked English Wikipedia, which has millions of pieces. Here's tech reporter Paul Ndiho with more.
Thanks, Esther. To address this, a movement led by young wikis or techies in Ghana aims to empower individuals to contribute to Wikipedia in their native languages. This allows volunteers to create and edit numerous Wikipedia articles in African languages. Earlier, I spoke with Juris Darlington Kwashi, a Wikipedia team lead who was on a jog on one of the hottest days in Accra, Ghana. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
You are focused on empowering the young people in Ghana. You do a lot of things for Wikimedia. Bring us up to speed. How is the tech community there that you lead to make sure that Africa is heard or Africa is on the map?
Running mentorship programs, then also training programs to be able to train not only developers but people who contribute to the technical infrastructure. We do have people from software engineering background, people from UI UX, people who only do quality assurance in terms of software testing at large, and people who are much more focused on localization. So localizing most of the Wikimedia projects into other languages for people to be able to also understand, since there are people who are much more good with contributing to other projects at large, but they are not well vested when it comes to contributing to projects that are only in English, right? So we try to let them have some form of inclusivity in terms of they being able to contribute to it, then making most of our projects much more diverse.
A lot of these tech companies don't take in consideration inclusivity. I'm happy to hear that you guys are actually on the cutting edge of that spectrum, where you are trying to at least incorporate some languages when it comes to programming, when it comes to including some of these indigenous people into the tech field. How has that been like?
So we do have people that localize these kind of projects into local languages in Ghana, and not only in Ghana at large, but Africa at large. So we do have people contributing to Swahili Wikipedia, Akan, which is Tree Wikipedia, Yoruba Wikipedia, the Pidgin Wikipedia, both Ghana and Niger Pidgin Wikipedia, then also the Funali language for folder, and the language communities within Africa also grow at large. So there are people and mentors who normally come on board to be able to help people who, let's say, from these kind of local communities are well vested in terms of good language with regards to these kind of languages.
What drives young people across the continent, or what drives people in general to be on Wikimedia?
People within the academia space get to be able to also use Wikipedia in education as well, in terms of helping or teaching their fellow students or even lecturers and professors using Wikipedia as a secondary aggregator, an aggregator of sources to be able to help researchers, learners to be able to also know how to be able to make good and authentic research in terms of helping their project, their thesis, and information that they normally seek on Wikipedia.
What does it take to be on Wikipedia?
Wikipedia is open for all. It's not limited to a certain group of people or people with a specific skill, because we make it much more diverse and open to everyone who wants to just contribute. So anyone can be able to create an account and contribute to Wikimedia, any of the Wikimedia projects, from Wikipedia to its other sister projects as well, such as Wikidata, Wikivoyage, which is much more of information related to places and cities as well. So once you are able to get in touch with these communities, it makes it much more easier to get some form of mentorship, to learn about the policies, the guidelines, and how best you can be able to also navigate your way in terms of contributing to the Wikimedia project at large.
You run this network of young wikis or young techies across the continent. What are some of the other projects that you are involved in?
Technical angle, which is helping people to develop tools, people to have a fair understanding of how best to contribute to Wikimedia technically, in terms of the engineering aspects, creating tools, creating user scripts, creating bots, and also extensions and etc. Then aside that, I'm able to also provide technical support for most of the Wikimedia communities and also volunteers within the African region.
Joris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too.
That was Joris Darlington Kwashi, Wikipedia team lead based in Accra, Ghana. That's today's Tech Report. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you very much, Paul. Be sure to join Paul Ndiho every Wednesday right here for another Tech Report on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching. Should be here.